Hi, I'm Christopher Walker with Closely Observed English. In this video, I'm going to help you, a B2 First or First for Schools candidate, better prepare for the speaking paper. And to do that, we're going to be looking at the assessment for speaking. In this video, I'm going to concentrate on the grade that the interlocutor will give you. And that grade, if you watch the previous video in this series, is for global achievement. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about how the interlocutor will consider your speaking. And then I'm going to give you a few little ideas that you can use when you're preparing and on the day of the exam to try and boost your score in those areas. So as I mentioned in the previous video outlining the assessment, you're awarded a grade in the band system. Band 5 is the top and band 3 is what you need to aim for to get a pass. And the first description for band 3 is that the candidate handles communication on familiar topics despite some hesitation. So if you're a band 3 candidate, somebody who's going to get a pass overall, which is great, well done, B2 level, that's really something. You need to be able to talk about familiar topics. So that would be things like free time activities, sport and fitness, food, shopping, travel, something along those lines. So to be able to talk about those topics, you have to first think about them. So the more you think about familiar topics before the exam and everything connected with this, the better you will be able to handle communication on those topics. If you're the sort of person who doesn't like sport at all, you think sport is useless, a waste of time, well, that's okay as long as you can still talk about it and say why. But for me, the best form of preparation here would be to think about these different areas of your life and to try and think about them in English, especially before you go in for the exam. The second part there was that you are allowed some hesitation, so that's a bit of thinking time. But what can you do to help prepare there and reduce the hesitation that you have? Well, one thing that you can do would be to make a list of topics on flashcards, general familiar topics, and at home, even if you don't have anyone to practice with, not a problem. Take a flashcard, turn it over, and give yourself 5 seconds to say 2 sentences. So you think for 5 seconds and then you say, okay, and you talk just for a couple of sentences about that topic. So maybe it's travel. First thing I can think about, I'd really like to travel more to places I don't know about. I would like to visit China because I know very little about Chinese culture, and travel is a good way to find out more. Something like that. If it's too difficult to do that, that's okay at this stage. Give yourself more thinking time. Turn the flashcard over and give yourself 10 seconds to think what you're going to say. If that's too difficult, turn it over, think for 20 seconds. Whatever it is that you spend thinking, that's fine. But the next time you do it, try to reduce your thinking time, and that will help you practice reducing hesitation. The next part of the description, remember this is at band 3, which is what you're aiming for to get a pass overall. The next part says, organizes extended discourse, but occasionally produces utterances that lack coherence, and some inaccuracies and inappropriate usage occur. Now remember, this is written for other examiners and for teachers to follow. So there are a lot of things here that you don't necessarily need to know in terms of the language, but I can explain it to you very easily. Extended discourse in the speaking exam is that you can talk about one topic for a little bit longer than one sentence, maybe a couple of sentences, for example. So if you watch the previous video where we looked at the different parts of the speaking paper, in part 2 you have to talk about 2 pictures and answer a question. being able to do that requires extended discourse. You keep talking until you have answered the question for that picture. Here it says, occasionally produces utterances that lack coherence. So an utterance would be a part of what you say. Sometimes it will be a whole sentence, sometimes part of the sentence, maybe a clause, or it could be an expression that you say a little bit wrong. So for example, raining cats and dogs is an utterance. If you said raining cats and frogs, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense because it's not the way we say it. Actually, nobody says it's raining cats and dogs anymore. They haven't said that for a long time, not in my experience anyway. So here it says occasionally produces utterances that lack coherence. So coherence is this idea of things being in order so that the person listening can understand that your idea has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Most of the time when you're talking to your friends, what you say will have coherence. You will know when there is a problem talking to your friend because suddenly you can't understand what they're talking about. So if somebody's talking about the weather and then suddenly switch to talking about school or the exam without making it clear that they're changing the topic, you won't be able to understand what they're saying in any language. It will cause confusion. So that would be a loss of coherence. And then finally it says some inaccuracies and inappropriate usage occur. So an inaccuracy would be a grammar mistake, mostly. And when we say inappropriate usage, usage means how you make use of a word. And inappropriate would be wrong. So if you use the wrong word for the context or the situation, then that would be inappropriate usage. So for example, if it's the middle of winter when you take the exam and out the window you can see that much snow and you say, oh, the weather is very bad and I'm worried because I forgot my jacket. Okay, jacket is probably not the word you're thinking of. You probably want winter coat. There's a big difference between a jacket and a coat. And from the context, we can see that jacket's the wrong choice. So that would be inappropriate usage of the word jacket. You want coat instead. But that sort of thing is okay if you do it a little bit for band 3. Moving up to band 5, we have handles communication on a range of familiar topics, that's the same, with very little hesitation. So if you followed my tip from before and you practice putting your thoughts in order very quickly on familiar topics, then you'll be ready to go for a band 5 here. You'll be pushing your skills forward. Uses accurate and appropriate linguistic resources to express ideas and produce extended discourse that is generally coherent. So again, that's quite similar to the last one. Accurate and appropriate linguistic resources. Linguistic resources are mostly vocabulary and grammar, but other things as well. So for example, in English, we often use little words that we just put into our sentences and they are just fillers. They don't really count. So sometimes, yeah, you're listening to someone, yeah, and they say, yeah, you know, it's great, yeah? So that use of yeah doesn't fit as grammar or vocabulary as such. It's a linguistic resource though. However, most English speakers don't use the word no for this. It's great, no, and it's really interesting, no. And what I'd like to do, no, is to do this, no. That sounds wrong, doesn't it? So that would not be the right linguistic resource to use. So that's what I mean. It's not just grammar and vocabulary. It can be other things as well. So you need to be a lot more careful about making mistakes with grammar, vocabulary, and the other things to get to a band 5. And you also need to produce extended discourse that is generally coherent. So that's just a little bit better than at band 3. So you need to think a little bit more, plan what you're going to say a little bit more. And if you can do those things, then you should generally be fine for the global achievement side of things. So there aren't very many tips that I can give to help you with global achievement, because it's the whole of the assessment for the interlocutor. All they do is check you against global achievement. So to improve your skills, like I mentioned before, you need to practice planning what you're going to say and saying things as quickly and as well as possible. And you also need to familiarize yourself with as many different topics from your everyday life as possible. These things will definitely help a lot. Work on your coherence by recording yourself as you speak. And then when you press play again to listen, just ask yourself, am I still talking at the end about the same topic as I was at the beginning? If you've gone to a different topic, or it sounds like you're talking about something different when you finish, that's not what you want for this coherence idea. Okay, so that's about it for global achievement. In the next videos, I'll be looking at the areas that are assessed by the assessor themselves in the speaking. So until next time, thank you very much. Goodbye.